So with the recent updates to Boruto's online databook, it's finally been confirmed that the person who taught Boruto Flying Thunder God is Kashin Koji. Now this shouldn't be surprising to most of us, even if you had our niche theories about Sasuke or even possibly Orochimaru. This was always the most likely option, but it does pose the question of how. And it also reveals how Boruto actually escaped his battle versus Code 2 years ago. Now this isn't the only thing that was revealed, since it also states that Boruto's Flying RAIJIN is pretty much a different variant of the jutsu, which means you could consider it an entirely separate jutsu. In fact, it goes on to say that compared to Minato's Flying RAIJIN, it flat out has more limitations. So in a sense, Boruto has been nerfed, and it shouldn't be surprising since Boruto outright stated that he's not as good as Minato when it comes to this specific technique. So all this is doing is just confirming what we already knew. With that said, it's somewhat more severe at the same time, since Boruto not being as good as Minato could have just meant that he isn't as fast at long distances, which would make sense since it took a while for him to get to the 10 Tails dimension, while he was able to spam it in the battle versus Mitsuki. But when it comes to this databook, it's saying that he has more limitations, which means that he might not be able to do certain things we've seen Minato do in the past. Now Flying RAIJIN or Flying Thunder God pretty much affords the user instantaneous movement, so the ability itself is actually very simple in use. All the user has to do is place a seal or marking for the technique on any solid surface, and they will be able to teleport to that location no matter the distance. By the way, when I say any solid surface, I mean any solid surface. So that would be the ground, the trees, rocks, or even a person's skin. Now what makes the ability even more overpowered is the fact that the marking never disappears even if the person who places the seal dies. This was seen when Minato was able to use the seal he placed on Obito during the battle with the Nine Tails over 16 years later after being resurrected. Though the seal was removed by Obito becoming the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, so there technically is a way to do it. Now the ability does have other uses as well, which involves teleporting individuals to a marked location without you yourself needing to travel with them, along with being able to teleport attacks as seen when Minato teleported the Biju bomb fired by the Nine Tails. Now another insane feat, which I think is maybe the most insane one to be honest, would be when Minato was able to teleport the entire Shinobi Alliance during the war. This was done by connecting his chakra to Naruto, who had given his chakra to the members of the alliance, though doing this did seem to use up most of his own chakra. Now speaking of chakra, the jutsu seems to use a lot of it. This was confirmed when 3 elite Jonins could only perform the ability by combining their chakras in a certain formation, though it could be a skill issue, meaning that if you're less skilled with the jutsu itself, it takes more chakra. I say that because Minato was able to spam the technique relentlessly both prior to and after his death, and so did Tobirama. Now you could say that they just had immense amounts of chakra, but the difference between how much they can use it in comparison to the 3 Jonins makes that less likely in my opinion. It makes way more sense that skill is the main factor behind the chakra consumption. So this in and of itself could be a possible limitation for Boruto as well, which would actually explain why it took so long for him to connect with and teleport to the marking that sent him to the 10 Tails dimension. So extra long distances may require a lot of chakra and focus since he isn't as skilled as Minato, which he himself admitted. Then again, Boruto didn't seem to have that issue when he had to leave the dimension. So it could be the case that this isn't necessarily about long distances, but more so traveling to locations he hasn't visited before. It's also possible that there's a limit on the amount of locations he's able to have marked at the same time, which is why he pretty much has the Toad's carry dependence he already marked. Then again, they might just limit him by placing a cap on the size of the objects he's able to teleport, so no teleporting Biju bombs similar to Minato. Now one thing I hope isn't limited is the amount of people he's able to teleport at once, since I still believe that Boruto saved the villagers in the flash forward scene by connecting his chakra to all of them and teleporting them to somewhere safe, similar to what Naruto and Minato did in the war. Though it's not like it's the end of the world, since Boruto can simply refine the ability over time, thus removing those limitations.
All of us are outside the barrier.
Teleportation jutsu.
With that being said, Boruto isn't a slouch in any sense, since he seemingly pulled off the jutsu multiple times within the last few chapters. First when he instantly appeared stomping on Code's face, later when he teleported behind Code in chapter 3, and also when he teleported to the 10 Tails dimension, which I mentioned before. So not only is Boruto able to teleport to different locations on the same planet, he can also teleport to different dimensions as long as the seal is present. Now another thing to point out is that you don't need to use hand signs when using Flying RAIJIN to cover short short distances, and this was shown by Minato multiple times throughout the original series. This also rings true for Boruto since he was able to teleport without hand signs when he did it versus Code, and also when he evaded the Ten Tails entity. Though I will say that Boruto used hand signs to teleport short distances in the battle versus Mitsuki multiple times, so it might be the case that both Minato and Boruto used hand signs off panel, as crazy as that sounds, even when it seemed like they didn't. Or maybe Boruto just needed to use hand signs in the battle versus Mitsuki due to the aforementioned limitations. Now, Flying Thunder God or Flying RAIJIN does provide the user with instantaneous movement, which is pretty much the fastest movement possible. Even so, you're not invincible or untouchable, since your activation speed or reaction speed after spawning is truly what decides whether or not you're effective with the jutsu. This was proven when Madara was able to dodge Tobirama when he tried to attack him from behind using Flying Thunder God. Madara's reaction speed was simply faster than Tobirama's attack or combat speed, so him instantly teleporting behind him didn't matter. Now, I say this to clarify the popular talking point that Boruto's Flying RAIJIN would get faster than instantaneous movement if he uses the Karma Seal. This simply isn't the case. He would actually get a speed boost to his activation speed and combat speed post spawning, which would actually help him to land hits against characters with fast reaction speeds. Now, Kashin Koji teaching Boruto the ability does make sense since he is the clone of Jiraiya, which means that he likely knew the formula for the technique. Now, I want to say that you guys should take this with a big grain of salt since it hasn't been confirmed or hinted at that Koji had access to Jiraiya's memories, though the argument itself could be made since Amado was able to save his daughter's memories and implant them into her cloned body, that being Delta. But even then, this argument does have one big flaw, which is that Amado was only able to do this because he saved a backup of her mind before she died. Clearly that wouldn't have been possible for Jiraiya based on the timeline of his death. So while he was able to clone his body to some degree since Koji isn't that identical, that doesn't explain him having the memories. Now, Naruto Explained did make a very interesting point on Twitter about you being able to share memories through chakra, or that memories can leak through accidentally as seen in the war. So it is possible that through whatever DNA sample Amado retrieved, Kashin Koji was then able to retrieve some of Jiraiya's memories through his chakra residue. Those say that this isn't anything concrete because it's not like Madara gained Hashirama's memories after implanting his cells into his body, so this clearly isn't universal. Then again, if I was to play devil's advocate, you could argue that chakra does possess memories and Amado just has the technology that allows him to access it. So if they did explain that this is how he knew about it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, you know? Or it could simply be that Karo was able to steal the secrets from the village as they did many other things, and the formula for Flying RAIJIN was one of them, which Kashin Koji was able to teach to Boruto. By the way, it could also be the case that they created it from scratch, using the data the public has on how the jutsu functions, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, I did mention that this new information does also explain how Boruto actually escaped from Code in chapter 5. That's because the most popular theory was that Boruto used Flying Thunder God to teleport away, leaving Sasuke behind, which a lot of people had a problem with because Boruto could have just taken Sasuke with him. Now, you could also just patch this problem or plot hole by saying that one of Boruto's limitations is that he can't take people with him, or that he can't transport something as big as an adult human. Even so, I believe that it's more likely that Boruto just flew away, since based on the established timeline, Kashin Koji came after Sasuke, which means that Boruto didn't have Flying Thunder God during that fight. But who knows, maybe all three of them did work together, but Code just caught them when Koji wasn't there. You could argue that, but it's just less likely in my opinion. Now, the next argument of course would be that Boruto just ran away, which is even less likely since Boruto clearly isn't on Code's level at this point in time, or he wouldn't be running away. So the most likely option here is that Boruto flew away and Code can't fly. Now, the fun thing about this is that you could also make the argument that Boruto could have just taken Sasuke with him as he flew away. But maybe Boruto wasn't that good at flying back then, or maybe if Sasuke didn't distract Code, he would have caught Boruto before he was high enough in the sky to get away. So many possibilities here, you guys just have to pick one, I guess. But yeah, that's it for the updates. You know, Kashin Koji helped Boruto to develop this new jutsu. This new jutsu has limitations, which kind of makes sense since Boruto is somewhat broken, and maybe they're trying to make room for the Jogan to have some type of relevance, because if Boruto is already broken before it gets to that point, then what's the need for the Jogan? And of course, I believe the Jogan is canon. You know, you guys can disagree, of course, that's fine. With that being said, that is it for the video, guys. If you guys liked it, drop a like and also subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.